This is the video tutorial for the Happy Days child size owl bag, and this is how we make it. Start by making the lining. Place your two lining fabrics right sides together, line up all the sides and edges, and then add some clips. I've added my clips and I've also added my gap sign at the bottom, and it'll be through this gap that I'll be turning it the right way out later. I'm now going to take it over to the sewing machine and use 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting at the top, sew all the way down, stop, around the curve to my gap sign and stop, start again the other side of the gap sign and stop, and then back up and stop. I've sewn all the way around, remembering to leave my gap, and I'm going to leave it the wrong way out for the moment, and we'll be working on the outer of the bag. I've cut out my feathers. Each bag requires 4 feathers, and each feather requires 2 pieces of material cut out. For each feather you'll need to place them right sides together, line up all the sides and edges, add some clips. I've added my clips, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and use 1/4 inch seam allowance. Start at the top, sew all the way around, careful around the curve, and back up and stop. I've sewn all the way around, and now I'm going to carefully snip all around the curved bit. I've snipped around the curve, and now I'm going to turn it the right way out through the gap at the top. I've turned it the right way out, and I've repeated for the other 3 feathers. Now just put these to one side for a moment. Now working on the back of the bag, place your 2 back fabric pieces right sides together and line up this top edge and add some clips. I've added my clips, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and use 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew right across. I've sewn all the way across. I've used red cotton so you can see clearly. And the next bit is open it out, take it over your iron and press the seam open. I've pressed open the seam, and I'm going to put the back to one side for the moment. Take your 2 front pieces and the feathers that you made earlier and place them with the raw edge of your feather and the top edge together. Space them out evenly. You could use a measure if you want to, or you could just use your eye. And when you're happy with where they are, add a clip at the top of each one. I'm now going to tack quite close to the edge across each feather, just to keep them in place for the next stage. I've sewn each of the feathers quite close to the edge and tacked them into place. I'm now going to take the top of the bag and place it right sides together on top. Line everything up and then add a few clips. I've added my clips, and I'm now going to take it over the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way across using 1/4 inch seam allowance, and once again I've used red cotton so you can see it. I'm now going to take it over to the iron and open up the seams. I've pressed open the seams, and now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to start working on the face. For the beak and the eyes, I'm going to be using Heat and Bond Light Sewable. I'm making the beak. I've placed a small piece of my orange fabric that I've chosen to use for the beak, and I've placed it wrong sides up, so this is the pretty side, so I'll be looking at the back of the fabric. And then I take a small piece of Heat and Bond, and the side with the rough bubbles on, you'll feel it with your fingers, place it on top, and all you do is take your iron and press it like this into place. Once your fabric has cooled down a little bit, place your template on the back on the paper side, as I've done. Then get a pen and draw carefully all the way around. Once you've drawn round, just cut it out. Repeat the whole process for the two eyes. Place your eyes and your beak on the front of your bag. Ensure that there's at least a centimetre from this edge to the top of the eye, because we'll be losing fabric there with the seam allowance. When you're happy that they're in the right place, peel off the backing and iron into place. I've ironed my eyes and beak into place, and now I'm going to sew on my buttons. I'm now going to hand sew the buttons into place. I've sewn the button eyes into place, and I'm going to put it to one side while I work on the strap. We're now working on the strap. I'm using a sample piece so it's much easier for you to see. We're now working on the strap. I'm using a sample piece as it's much easier to show you on camera. Place your fabric for your strap wrong sides down, so you're looking at the pretty side. Then fold in half lengthways and press, and then add a few clips along the open edge. I've added some clips, and now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, sew along the open side. I've sewn using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way along, and now I'm going to turn the tube the right way out. If you have a tube turner, it's a good time to use it. I've turned my sample piece, and I've also gone ahead and made the full size version, which yours will look like. We're now going to attach the handle. Measure 2 centimetres from this edge, make a mark, and the same this side from this edge, 2 centimetres, and make a mark as I've done. Take your handle and place the raw edge of your handle and the raw edge of the top of your bag together on the line that you've just drawn, facing downwards, and then add a clip or a pin to hold it into place. I've done the same for this side, so raw edge to raw edge on the line and added a clip. Next, take it over your sewing machine and sew it fairly close to the edge. Tack along this handle and this handle. I've tacked my strap cum handles into place. Now fold your strap out of the way. Now place the front piece with the feathers on top. Line up all the sides and edges and add some clips. I've added my clips and I've paid special attention to my side seams to make sure that they both match up on both sides, and I've ensured that my handle is tucked well away from where I'm going to sew. And now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, sew along and down and stop, around the curve, stop, and then back up and stop. I've carefully sewn all the way down, around the bottom and back up, and ensuring that my feathers and my strap are tucked well out of the way. I'm now going to carefully snip the curves for a much nicer finish when we turn it. I've snipped around the curve, and now I'm going to turn the bag the right way out. I've turned the outer bag the right way out, and now I'm going to tuck this inside the lining. The lining is still turned the wrong way out. I've put the outer of the bag, which was turned the right way, inside the lining, which has been left the wrong way. I've ensured that the handles are tucked in as well. I've made sure that these side seams line up and the top edges all line up, and then I've added some clips. I'm now going to take it over the sewing machine and carefully sew all the way around, joining the outer to the lining. Use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've sewn using a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, so I've joined the lining to the outer. I'm now going to pull everything the right way through the gap I left at the bottom. I've turned everything the right way out. The final bit of sewing is to sew up the gap that we left in the lining, and then once you've done that, tuck the lining inside the outer bag. I've tucked the lining inside and I've sewn up the gap, and I've also pressed all the way around. And that's your child size owl bag from Happy Days, all finished.